everyone, my name's Nina, as you heard. Today's presentation is called Living with Motor Neurone Disease, Personal Perspectives. And I aim to inform you about the different forms of motor neurone disease. We hope to do this today by showing you 3 videos of 3 different people who have motor neurone disease. They have kindly shared their stories with us to help educate and inform us about motor neurone disease, and we thank them very much for their cooperation. We'd also like to thank the 3 people who filmed the videos, Julia Labra, Katie O'Sullivan and Rosalind Savage, for their films.
Are you able to speak in this direction?
Yep, sure. Is that better? So motor neurone disease is characterised by loss of the motor neurons. The upper motor neurons are in the brain and the spinal cord, and the lower motor neurons are the peripheral nerves as they leave the spinal cord and also in the brainstem. So upper motor neurons, signs and symptoms are characterised by weakness, by spasticity, so that involuntary movement, and also tightness, hyperreflexia. People with motor neurone disease show stiffness and tightness in their muscles if they have the upper motor neurone signs and symptoms, and also a slowness of the movement. For lower motor neurone signs and symptoms, this causes weakness, but often the weakness is associated with atrophy, so loss of muscle bulk. There are fasciculations, the little flickering of the muscles, and there might be hyporeflexia, where the reflexes are diminished or they're even lost. So these upper and lower motor neurone signs and symptoms result in a decreased level of function, increased disability, and also a loss of independence. So this slide shows the different forms of motor neurone disease, and they can be classified depending on whether they've been inherited or if they're sporadic. The pattern of the involvement of the motor neurons, so whether it's upper or lower motor neuron involvements, and also the parts of the body that have been affected. So ALS is the most common. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, it affects the upper and lower motor neurons. About 25% of people with ALS have bulbar onset, and the remainder have limb onset. Progressive bulbar palsy affects the lower motor neurons. It affects in the brainstem. So when you think of bulbar, think of brainstem weakness. And this affects talking and swallowing. Primary muscular atrophy accounts for about 10% of cases. Here the lower motor neurons are affected, and it results in weakness and wasting of the muscles. So you may have heard of the flail arm or flail leg variety. So in the flail arm variety, also known as man in the barrel, people have difficulty lifting their arms, so that initially they're not able to lift their arms, but they're able to use their hands, and later there's more distal weakness in the hands as well, which makes carrying out everyday tasks quite difficult. Primary lateral sclerosis is a rarer form. It affects the upper motor neurons. So it causes stiffness and spasticity initially without weakness and later with weakness. Here people have slowed movements, and they tend to have difficulty moving their limbs. And I often describe these people as they tend to walk and they look a little bit like a robot. Muscle tightness and joint contraction can also be a problem. So MND and frontotemporal dementia. Frontotemporal dementia refers to degeneration of the frontal and temporal lobes and affects language and also behaviour. So traditionally they were seen as 2 separate diseases, but more recent research shows that patients with frontotemporal dementia can later develop MND, or those with MND later develop FTD. But there is a high proportion of patients with motor neurone disease who show subtle changes in both their behaviour and also their cognition. Staying with this for a second, if we talk about the prognosis, people with either pure lower or upper motor neurone involvement have a better prognosis than those who have a mix of upper and lower motor neurone involvement. So this slide shows a classification by Talman about the pattern of motor neurone disease involvement and also where the symptoms have begun. All right. So So we've heard now a little bit about the theory of motor neurone disease, about the classification, about the signs and symptoms. So now what I'd like to do is show you some videos so that you can understand it a little bit more from a personal perspective.
Andrew, thank you for sharing your story. My first question though is, how long have you had MND?
It was confirmed in July 2012. It started in January 2012 after I choked on a bit of ice and passed out. From January to July, I had more tests than John Bradman. There was no test to confirm MND. They test for everything else, and if you fail all the tests, legally you have it.
What type of MND do you have?
SL with a bulbar onset. It's affected my upper limbs more than my legs.
What was your initial symptom?
After choking on a bit of ice, I developed a slur in my speech. People thought I had been hitting the sauce. I had suffered sudden weight loss, which doctors had tested me for in 2009 and again in 2010, which I now think was the start of it, knowing what I know about MND now.
How has it progressed for you, and how has it affected your body?
Prior to July 2012, I was working as a manager of a small car yard. My loss of speech was very hard, but my hands have stopped working. My arms have become weak, as have my legs. My balance is poor and mobility is poor.
What is the biggest challenge you face?
I have led a very independent life, accepting others in the hardest. I am very lucky I have a very close, loving family which have put their whole life on hold to help me. My sister has opened her house and made sure I get the best help available. But the biggest challenge is New South Wales health system. Why does New South Wales Health not have a central database? If I have to repeat my story to one more person whose officers are next door, I will scream.
What has helped you manage your illness?
A routine healthcare professional around me. I could not speak highly enough of the team here headed up by Frank Brennan and my neurone professor from McGarry University. They have seen it all before you take the time to answer all of your questions and explain everything in a way everyone can understand. Then you make your own mind up on treatment.
Has coming into the gym program been helpful?
It has been helpful to me in several ways. As well as killing some time during respite, it keeps your mind active, and the one-on-one physio has kept my arms and legs moving. It has also brought me in contact with other sufferers of MND. As I am younger than most sufferers here, it has allowed me to help others and show them how this app I am using called verbally. I would be lost without it. I don't know what's worse, stopping talking or waiting for it to happen. I do know this simple program has made it bearable.
Thank you.
No problem.
So, from Andrew's video, we've learnt about his presentation and progression. So it started with bulbar symptoms. He reported weight loss. Later, he reported weakness of his arms, and then his legs have been affected last. As you heard, he talked a lot about the positives and also the negatives of the healthcare system, and he described how difficult it is for him to accept help and also to have lost some of his independence. But in that, he's talked about the importance of his family. I think the video really highlights the importance of assistive technology for communication. There's been some fantastic achievements for the advancements for those suffering from bulbar symptoms, so speech problems with MND. So think about how long in the video it took for Andrew to write no problem. So, and it's allowed him to maintain contact with other people and also for us to be able to hear his story.
Yes, my name is Jean and I'm 18 years old.
And so Jean, what was your first symptom and when did it start?
I started fall over back in maybe February last year in 2012, and it got worse till then, and I finished up by June. I couldn't talk, I was losing my voice, and nobody seemed to understand, and people asking me if I had a stroke, which I hadn't, and it just went on from there until I had a bad fall in October and finished up in hospital. I just got worse and worse. My legs were going and I was having very bad falls over backwards, not forward, and falling up the steps. And then I couldn't raise my right arm and my right leg would twist, a foot would twist, and I almost fell over.
And how are you walking around at the moment?
I only can get around on the walker or with the walking stick, but I don't go very far with the walking stick because I'm not strong enough on the legs to do that. The walker is good. No, but I've got to be very careful with everything I eat, soft enough to be mashed that I can get down a lot of stuff I've had to cut out because I can't chew it. My jaw is going up, bottom jaw is going away from the top jaw, and I'm not chewing. The teeth are not making to chew the thing, so it's going to be soft enough for me to mash with my tongue.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
And you're waiting for the pig?
Yeah, I'm going to have a pig. I have put in on the 16th of October, and now I've got to see a respiratory doctor to make sure I can have whatever they give me, and then I'll have the pig put in, if possible, on the 16th of October, which will be good.
Yeah.
By then I don't think I'll be eating very well. But the only thing with this, you don't feel hungry. I've found myself going all day without anything, and I don't feel hungry, so now I've had to make sure that I have my porridge in the morning, and I have yogurt for lunch, and I have a vegetable soup for tea, but I have to make myself do that because I don't feel
No appetite.
no appetite.
So what are the biggest challenges you face, Jane, with this disease?
But I think the cooking is one of the hardest things because I've got to be careful I don't burn myself.
Yeah.
And I don't have a shower, I have a shower over the bath, and I have to climb over the bath into the shower. I have the shower, and I think, oh God, I got a baby.
Yeah.
but I managed that quite well.
Yeah.
And that, you know, I've got bars to hang on to.
Yeah.
But I miss not being able to do a lot for myself, which I've always done. Most people have been really good.
Yeah.
I haven't had any problems with people knocking me back. Even when we go to the doctors to get that out of the car, the man comes out and says, "Hey, George, will you help me? Will you help me up with my shoulder?" "Yes, I will."
The relationship with you.
Oh, that's yeah, that's changed. We've always been a reasonably close family, but not that close that we live in each other's pocket. But since I've had this, my youngest sister, who's 15 years younger than me, has taken over a lot of my responsibility, and she comes down and we've got very, very close things. And she does my banking, and she does my bills, and since then she's been coming with me, and we've been giving the doctors a hard time. They always get and that, and like they mentioned death, it doesn't worry me, but I mean, I didn't want to go out this way, but since I felt a lot, and that's all I can really say. It's never been sad because it's not going to get me anywhere. And when I was crying all the time, before I didn't know what was wrong, and it just happened. But once the professor told me I had this, I said, "Thank you."
So Jean's MND started with falls and a decrease in balance. She's reported lower limb weakness and then some arm weakness as well. As you could see from the video, her voice has changed and her swallow's been affected, so she's got those bulbar symptoms. She's had to make many modifications to her life to be able to maintain her function. So as you heard, she uses a walker. She's really had to modify her food to make sure she doesn't aspirate anything. And in a few weeks, you heard that she'll be getting a PEG, which is a percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy for safe feeding. Even her relationships have modified in her family. She talks a lot about her sister and how her sister has helped her. For Jean, everyday tasks have become more difficult and she's had to modify them so that she can continue to do them. For example, how she baths. She talks about the importance of the diagnosis, about not knowing was the hardest thing and it made her cry a lot. She talks a lot about laughing and crying. I don't personally know Jean, but there's a possibility that there may be some element of emotional lability. I'm not sure because I don't know her, but it's another sign of people with motor neuron disease as well.
Terry Bullbridge was diagnosed in November 2010.
Okay, so tell me a bit about that process. What did you first start to notice?
My hand, my left hand, it was, I just couldn't do little things with it, doing up buttons, trivial little things like that. Although it wasn't sore, it didn't hurt, it wasn't pain, but I just couldn't use it. Started, it was getting worse, and then I went to my current GP, and he straight away immediately put me straight on to the different tests and doctors and things like diagnosis with MND. Even though my cousin had just passed away with it prior to me being diagnosed, but I still didn't think about that. So I was probably just expecting again, a pinch nerve or something somewhere. I can't walk anymore. Can't get up and do anything like that. My other hand's going now, and so I have trouble, doing anything with my hands, which is the more frustrating part really, because if you can't walk around and things like that, at least if you can, flip through a paper or a paper or something like that. But when you can't use your hands, that's it. That's as straight as they are. That's it.
So apart from your hands, what else is motor neuron disease doing to you?
Or breathing, yes, that's becoming really difficult. And this morning actually I had to get Reg to get me up straight away. I've got to sit up straight, but it's getting more difficult, breathing. So.
And tell me about eating and drinking.
Oh, that's all right. Just got to take a lot smaller, food-wise, but I've got no appetite or taste or anything. Nothing tastes the same anymore. And I don't really want anything anyway, so it makes it sort of difficult to sort of decide, but everything back.
Tell me about the support group that you go to at Port Campbell Hospital.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, it's just because we understand what we're talking about, sort of thing. And I mean, sometimes too, like somebody might find a way of doing something, just some little trick or whatever, just to do something, and you just pass that on. That can be useful, that sort of thing. But yeah, and I suppose it's sort of, you're not so isolated. I mean, it's sad to think that anyone's got it, but you sort of feel a bit more, I don't know, stupid way to put it, but at home, because everybody then knows what we're talking about and that sort of thing. So, yeah, so it's a support group meeting. I really didn't want to go. I just wanted to like just get out of my face. I'm not ready for this, and then at the end of the day, I was like, oh, that's a better go. But I was really pleased I did, because I got to see another gentleman that came there, Paul, and he had the same versions as my cousin had. And then I could understand some of what he could do and couldn't do. So sort of seeing him, I thought, I understood.
So what's different about your type of MND versus your cousin's?
Well, he started with speech and swallowing, so he could no longer eat or, but he could still do some things with his hands and things like that. Yeah, so.
Do you wish that people in the community knew more about MND?
It'd be a good thing if more nurses understood it. Because the 5 trips I've had to hospital in the last 12 months, some of them have got no idea. That's where one nurse, she came up to me and she said, I know you've got motor neurone, and I know it's not going to get any better, but you have to get up and do some exercise. I said, yes, I would if I didn't have motor neurone. If you don't quite understand it, why not go and just do a bit of Googling, go and ask a doctor or something. I'm trying to get through to them. You need the 2 people to get me in and out of the bed. You needed 2. It's like talking to a brick wall. So they need to be educated a little bit more on things too.
I know that managing your dry mouth is something that you face every day.
Yes, it's dry, very, very dry now. Yeah. It's not on me.
What do you do to try and manage that?
Use a Hamilton spray and sips of water. There's nothing else you can do about it. Sometimes it takes a while, but the last few days it's been getting actually worse. It's been every day, sort of wake up in the morning. And the worst thing is it sort of dried down the back here too. So, yeah, it's just very uncomfortable. I think, a lot of things too, I think, and I'm going to have to wet my mouth, I'm sorry, but a lot of things too. It's good riding with the girls that come now, from the IRTs and it's more sort of social than sort of, like they got in the shower and have a shower and things like that, which yes, you need a shower of course and that, but it's still sort of more social because they're fun and we just can have a laugh and a joke and chat. So
when you first met them, did they know much about MND?
Not a lot, I don't think, no, just not a lot. But as they've sort of progressed along with me, they've sort of learnt too, things you need to do. And how to do things, and like getting into the shower and that sort of thing. So they just work it out. They work it out as we go on together, sort of thing.
Okay, so Kerry presented with left hand weakness and also loss of dexterity, and we saw it when she was holding up her hands, the atrophy around the fingers. She then reported lower limb weakness and an inability to walk. She also talked about her difficulty with breathing and also her loss of appetite and the effect of having a dry mouth. She tells us that her cousin had MND, and it brings up the possibility of a genetic form. So for a genetic form, they look for 2 generations for family members with MND, and then possibly there's further genetic testing if needed and if the person wants to have genetic testing. About 5 to 10 of those with MND have a genetic form, and there are a few genetic forms of the that have recently been discovered. Of the 10%, about 20% come from the SOD1 gene mutation. So Kerry talks a lot about the lack of understanding from health professionals, and she also reports that health professionals learn through experience, which I think is definitely true. So motor neurone disease is an umbrella term that describes a group of progressive neurological diseases. The initial presentation and the rate of progression vary, as we've seen through the videos today. There's an eventual profound level of disability and also loss of independence. So the aim of today's talk is to describe and discuss the different forms of MND and give insights into how these affect sufferers. The case studies and stories give us as health professionals a personal insight into a textbook understanding of MND. From the videos today, we learned that each presentation is individual, how difficult it is to make a diagnosis, often through exclusion after lots of tests. We've gotten some insight into the personal fears, and we really thank the 3 patients who volunteered their time and stories to give us an honest, heartfelt account of what they're going through. They also talked about the importance of relationships, both within the family and for health professionals. From this, we also understand the importance of education for health professionals, both within and out of the hospital setting, and the importance of continuity of care for health professionals. And that's why we're here today, to try and increase our education. Andrew also talked about, when he told his story, it showed how important assistive technology is for him. Okay. So we aim to provide individualised care from a multidisciplinary approach. We want to try and get to know each person's story and then be able to anticipate changes and needs and then respond to these as needed. We aim to understand the spectrum of motor neurone disease, but remember that each patient is an individual and they have their own journey. Thank you.